So let's I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:02 or 3, whatever people have. And I will take the roll call now. So Victoria Knapp.
Present.
Okay, Amy Lyford is excused. Billy Malone. Meeting to order. What?
Sorry, I was muted. I was trying to say I'm here present.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Donald McCormick.
Present.
Dorothy Wong.
Here.
Hannah Petrie.
Here.
John Carmody. Is that?
Here, I'm gonna get off of my phone so I can try to. I don't think it's gonna join my screen if I stay on my phone. So I'm gonna leave the meeting and then re-enter through my laptop momentarily here.
Okay,
So,
Chris, is John your other person still?
Yes, he is.
Okay, is John here?
I don't know. Is he on the email thread?
Oh yeah,
I didn't check in with him, so I just assumed he'd get the email.
Yeah, yeah. I think I have everybody on the email thread. Well, anyway, I'm going to move on. So, Chris,
Okay.
You're here.
I am.
Veronica
Here.
and Daryl
Hello.
and Madeline,
Here.
Alan Peck,
Here.
Dan Harlow,
Here.
Doug Cauliflower,
Here.
Diane Marcussen here, Sylvia Vega.
Here.
Okay. So I'm just saving my spreadsheet. Okay. So we did the roll call. We're going to approve the meeting agenda. I put the wrong date for public comment. I put it down as March 3rd instead of March 1st. So my apologies for that. And I will, change that for the final. Are there any other questions, concerns, changes?
Diane,
Yeah.
so we may be making a change to the address to 4554 instead of 4550.
You may be, or you are.
That's what's listed. We're waiting for the final verification.
Right. So I was going to address that when we get to the presentation.
Okay.
Because do we know it needs to be changed for sure? Has AT&T confirmed? I think we'll do that when we get to the item.
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay. The minutes for December 7th, I don't believe were distributed committee-wide, and although they are completed. So Daryl, can you send those out to everybody and have them?
I sent them out 10 minutes ago.
Okay, so if everybody will review those, I'd like to defer any vote on this until next month. Do I have a motion to do that?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. Seconded by Alan. Okay, all those in favor of reviewing the December 7th meeting minutes at the April meeting? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Okay, thank you. From a chairman report, I don't have a lot, except that what I really would like to do is we have some new information, activity discussions going on about the building at Lincoln and Figueroa. And I wanted to see if Veronica had some additional information she wanted to share on that.
Yeah, the last report as of last Thursday, the building has been approved for a 4-story building. So it'll be 4 stories, 72 units.
And there is not any chance, I think, right, of it being any lower.
I don't know. We're still, and in our census tract, we're still writing letters and we're still appealing to the developer to follow the D and maybe think about families. PUSD needs students, and it would really be helpful to put unhoused families in there. So that's the last letter we worked on Sunday to be sent out to the developer. So
Okay, but so the current status right now, the
it's 4 stories approved by the County of LA.
Department of Regional Planning has gone ahead and approved their new plans, right? So they're theoretically they're off to building and safety now. I think.
Yes, now they're supposed to reach out to the community and they're supposed to arrange to come to the town council, but we haven't heard anything from them.
Okay. Okay.
There's
Thank
been
you.
no community outreach.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions on that building at all from the committee? Alan, is that you?
I was halfway raising my hand. My question would be, I just want to have my memory refreshed. 72 units, what percent was for moderate or low income housing?
They're all
of it.
senior, and I forget how many units are senior, but they're unhoused seniors.
Okay,
And-
so it's the whole facility.
Yeah, not low income or moderate income. It's unhoused.
And you're trying to get it split with families, unhoused families.
So we're trying to get all of families.
And 3 floors.
According to the census count that Dorothy and I worked on last Tuesday, we have approximately 29 unhoused people in Altadena. So they would be bringing in unhoused people into our community that don't already live here.
As opposed to housing families that could help with, we'd help them, they'd help us with the school system.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're not giving up hope until the last break. So.
Okay, great. Any other questions, concerns? Okay. We're going to move on to our item that we're doing for review, and I sort of want to take a minute, if I may. This is a cell, it's a small cell project, not a big cell tower, first of all. But we know that cell projects are always concerning to some folks and bring up a lot of questions and concerns. I think what we have determined is that there is some unclear information that the committee received from, I don't know if it was AT&T or Department of Regional Planning, but there's a question with the address. So I don't want to focus. I think, Adrian, you're still confirming what the address is. The neighbors have brought up questions about the actual address. So I think what I'd like to do tonight is refer to the project as whatever the actual location is, physical location is, that the tower would, or the small cell would be on. I want to, what I really think would be most helpful to all of us is to start from scratch, kind of getting a description from Adrian, asking questions about it and making sure that we're all clear on it. Then what will happen is that Hannah and Dorothy will go do some due diligence out in the community with correct information, correct address, correct all of that, and we'll go from there. And perhaps my thought is that we would have another presentation in April, but we'll see how we do going forward. As you all know, many of the concerns that are brought up by the community every time we do these, and I know some of us probably on the committee have the same concerns, is related to health issues with cell fixtures, cell facilities. And as we all know, we're required not to take those into consideration as we review these projects. Right now, it's illegal for us to do that. So anyway, so I just wanted to sort of take a minute to set the expectations for the review tonight. I think we need to take the time tonight to get everybody clear on what the project is and where it is and what it's impacting and what the timing and all that. Donald? You're muted.
Unmute.
Yes, ma'am. Just a question as maybe the newest member on the community or on the board. I'm just, I don't know what the health concerns that people would raise as to a cell tower.
Brain cancer.
Ah.
Mostly, mostly the I don't know, microwave, whatever things that are going through the air. So,
is there any medical support for that?
I'm sorry, Alan.
Is there any medical support for that?
Our discussion as we go through cell things is that we're not considering it because it's illegal for us to consider it.
May I just?
What's the source to the illegality? Why is it illegal?
The state of California, I think.
I can answer that. It's under the purview of the jurisdiction of the Federal Communications Commission. So they have an entire regulatory body that makes sure that all cell sites are in full compliance with radio frequency safety emissions. And again, it's a national standard, which is why it's under the purview of the federal government.
So this is a federal preemption issue. The federal government having taken over it, no local or state board can come up with a different standard. Am I understanding you?
That's correct. So it has to be, it's a federal standard that has to be adhered to. Basically, they don't want, because if you think about it, if this gets broken down into local jurisdictional purview, then more influence could be by various entities could be weighed on one side or the other. So that's the main.
I understand the concept of federal preemption. I'm just new to the committee, so.
Yeah, it's okay. That's all right. And Alan, you're clear now too? Okay, cool. Okay, so I think, Dorothy, I don't know if you wanted to introduce Adrian or if we just want to go ahead and have him start presenting. And Adrian, I think what we would like to do, up front first is to sort of have a simple description of what it is you're doing and why. Right. Sure, and then go into the mechanics of it. Okay.
First, let me just address the address issue. I haven't gotten to the complete bottom of it, and there is a chance that it's simply a typo on the plans. When I look up the address, the parcel that you guys are referencing, the home, is what comes up. But when you look up the parcel number that's on our plans, that it's distinctly the water tank facility that's a parcel that comes up. So that's really the parcel number rules the roost here. So if it's an error, we'll confirm that with the county tomorrow, and we'll get we'll make the correction on the plans and on the application materials. However, again, it is the correct parcel, so we're all in accord as far as which property it is.
Okay.
Okay, so
go ahead.
We want to introduce the project number and all that stuff, or just do the presentation?
Yeah, I can do any and all of the above, and I'll try to do it as succinctly as possible. So I guess I will share my screen at this point so that I can show you guys some slides and illustrate what we're proposing and go from there. So here we go. All right, so can everybody see the slide? Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Okay. So essentially, this is what we're proposing is a small cell, and this is simply a site called Altadena-002. It was originally slated for a right-of-way solution, but in absence of a right-of-way solution to the site, we seek private property solutions, and in this case, the local utility in the area happens to be the water tank property, which is where AT&T got a lease from. So first, let me explain to you guys why we're here and why small cells are so important to AT&T and every carrier's wireless networks. So essentially, since the introduction of the iPhone in 2006, there's been something like a 360,000% increase in data traffic on AT&T's wireless networks. I think we've all lived through this transformative era in our society where we've gone from essentially from sending paper memos and mail to emails and texts, and instead of renting VHS and DVDs, we stream all manner of media, and of course YouTube and that sort of thing. Now I can tell you that, for example, in my household, my kids don't watch television. They sit there and watch their phones or their tablets, and that's how they get their media. Now, the effect of all of this, essentially data-based communication, streaming, and technology, is that AT&T's networks have slowly just been shrunk in capacity. In other words, the more users that are added to a network over in any given geographic area will use more and more bandwidth as time goes along. So radio frequency engineers identify these areas and they fortify them with small cells, which are small, usually, if you think of a traditional cell site, and let me illustrate this for you. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. If you look at the large circle in the schematic, that is the coverage afforded by a typical macro site, is what we call them. Those are large. Usually they keep them at heights of 50 to about 70 to 80 feet high, and they place them on rooftops, in fake palm trees, basically anywhere that they could get a lease and place them. Now, typically we would prefer a co-location on a rooftop or something of that nature, but in absence of something like that, they have to put up standalone poles to meet the coverage objectives. Now, a macro site usually houses 12 antennas arranged in arrays of in 3 arrays of 4, and they usually point outward at forming a circle, thereby providing 360-degree coverage. These large macro sites typically cover about 1 to 2 miles, depending on topography. So they have a pretty good umbrella of coverage. But again, as more users are added under this umbrella of coverage, the capacity shrinks, and more so one way, there's only so many macro sites that can be built in any given area. But one solution that the RF engineers have come up with is to build small cells. And these are typically utility pole size or streetlight size sites. And instead of having 12 6 to 8 foot antennas, they utilize a small canister antenna or a small panel antenna. And by small, I mean 24 inches to about 36 inches. So about 2 to 3 foot antenna. And it's usually 1 to 3 antennas depending on the location. Now in this case, well, actually I'll get into the specifics, but let me give you a sense of the scale of the equipment. On the right, you see a typical macro cell. And again, 60 to 80 feet typically is where the RF engineers like to have them at. Whereas a small cell is usually about the size of a street light or a wood utility pole, usually much shorter than the typical wood utility poles, which go up from about 35 to about 65 feet, depending. So in our instance, we're proposing 2 34-foot poles, but I'll get to that momentarily here. And again, we've briefly addressed radio frequency safety compliance, and small cells generate a very minuscule amount of radio frequency emissions compared to a macro site. So again, there's an entire compliance department of AT&T that on an ongoing basis has to demonstrate compliance with the FCC rules, typically once or twice a year. And that is an ongoing program for the life of a site. Oops. These are some typical small cell installations that you would see in an urban environment. But again, since we're up in the hills, there's no commercial properties. to place, or in the right of way to place these antennas. So in this instance, we've found the property at the water tank site. So now introducing you to our project at what we called here 4550 El Prieto, which it turns out maybe 4554, and we'll correct that as needed. However, the property in question has the correct assessor's parcel number. Excuse me, let's see, oops, how did that happen there? This, okay, let's see. This is a site plan of the water tank property. You can see, this is the cul-de-sac that terminates on El Prieto Road, and this is the access road. Now, we're proposing two 34-foot poles, one on the northwest side of the corner of the property, and one on the southeast side corner of the property. The one on the northwest has one panel antenna on it, and the one on the southeast has two panel antennas on it. Now, this is an elevation schematic of the two poles. This is looking northwest. So as you can see, there's an existing power pole and up at the property feeding power to the water tank. And we're going about the same. Our pole is going to look very similar to their pole, and it'll be painted to match. And basically from any appreciable distance, it will look just like a power pole. Here's another elevation view. And this is a better aerial view to illustrate where the two poles will be located. And this will show you the photo simulation vantages that we've prepared. Now, essentially, as far as the offsite visibility of the poles, the northwestern pole will typically most be visible from beyond from the access road. Anywhere, even I walked the area and to take photos, and from the cul-de-sac, I could not get a sight of the water tank or the power poles up there because of the existing trees that line the cul-de-sac. So, and then driving or walking down even further south, southwest on El Prieto, you simply cannot see the hilltop over there. There's beyond that, there's no visibility. So you could argue that visibility impact is primarily limited to the access road. There are two properties to the northwest over there who will see it about as much as they would see the power pole, which it is located next to. This is a photo simulation of the pole. And as you can see, it's pointed out. It is right next to the existing power pole that's located right next to the water tank. And what you're seeing in the foreground is another power pole slightly downhill from there with a power transformer. So these are the main visibility issues for the area, and that concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions that you may have about the project. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. Just on this picture.
Yes.
So what we're seeing is a regular phone or electrical pole with a transformer on it that's existing. Is that correct?
In the foreground and in the background on the right. And
right. Okay.
Where the arrow points is the pole that we're proposing.
Okay. And do you need two poles, or could they be on one pole, or do they not get tall enough if they're on one pole?
Well, that's it exactly. If there's two sides to the hill, and it's obviously the water tank is on a flat portion of the hill. So that's why we're proposing one on the northwest and then one on the southeast, so that they see the antennas are directional. So wherever they're pointed, wherever they can see, if you think of them as a spotlight, wherever they can be pointed to is what they would cover. Another thing I'd like to point out, since these are small cells, the coverage umbrella that these afford is typically about 4 to maybe 800 feet, depending on topography, because their coverage is line of sight. So if there's a bank of trees or a hilltop or even a house or any structure will block the signal to some degree. It wouldn't block it 100%, but that's, RF engineers like to get as clear a line of sight as possible toward their coverage objectives.
And this is for AT&T customers only, and that area, I'm assuming, is very bad reception for AT&T and maybe for Verizon as well. I don't know.
Well, I don't work for Verizon, so I can't comment on Verizon's coverage up there. But yes, yeah. AT&T's coverage is fairly bad. It's right now there may still be some coverage up there. So I know some people are going to come out and say, okay, I'm on AT&T and I have coverage up here. However, the RF engineer's software extrapolates forward based on the shrinkage rate. So they can tell that, say, in about a year and a half, which would be around when we would get around to, by which time we'd have all our permits and be able to build the site. They know that the coverage would get to a critical point where someone would not be able to maintain, say, a Netflix stream without lots of pausing or disconnection.
Right. And when you're doing construction, would that all be on water company property? It wouldn't be impacting any of the neighbors at all or anything?
Not at all. It would all be on, everything that we propose is on the other side of the water tank of the property fence.
Okay.
And our equipment area will be screened by a decorative wooden fence as well. So the equipment will not be visible. Right now, there's chain link fencing up there.
Yeah, the equipment that's on the ground is what you're saying, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Those came to my mind, and I can't see all of you. Daniel, go ahead.
So a couple questions. First off, will these sites have backup power? Because I know that's been a common complaint of residents is when the power goes out, they lose their cell service up here. So that's my first question. The second question, since this is in the wilderness interface, are the power lines going to be buried or above ground?
Well, there's existing electric service on site from the power pole there. So they won't have to bring power to the site from off-site. So there's already existing utilities on site. So
yeah, but to the AT&T equipment, is that going to be buried or is that going to be an overhead and then down the pole?
I believe it's going to be excavated.
Okay.
Can you find out for us and let us know?
Yes.
Yeah, because I actually have a mini or a micro site right up the block from me, and that one they dug under the ground. So I'm hoping that even though there's overhead lines like right next to it, I'm hoping these will be underground because I could see a potential for, some level of fire danger. And I know our others are above ground, but let's exclude thinking about those for a second.
It's impossible. They would typically excavate. And that's the utility design that's something that would be dealt with during the building permitting phase. So right now we're just in the planning conceptual phase.
So if you could find out if they're thinking about it, and Daniel, we could always put it on as a condition.
I would think that would be
the county as far in building and safety.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, we can ask for whatever conditions we want.
Right.
And we have asked for conditions on projects like this before.
Yeah.
That the county has granted. So.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody?
I was going to answer your question about the generator. I don't think a permanent generator is being proposed. However, the site will have a receptacle to bring a generator on site in the case of an emergency so that it can continue to provide service in the case of an emergency.
Okay, yeah, that's what they've done up the block. I've noticed when we've had power outages here too.
Right.
So,
Okay, Billy?
Yeah, I have some questions. I've been at my property for 15 years, and AT&T used to have the only service in our area that actually could reach that part of Altadena, which is off of Santa Rosa, and everybody would get 5 bars. And then recently, through the town council, we had all the small cells put in. And then after AT&T put all the cells, the small cells in our neighborhoods, myself and our neighbors now get 0 bars, and all of us have to use Wi-Fi calling. So it would seem to me that small cells are not necessarily better service for most people. I'm sure with the macro sites, you're losing some coverage, and I'm sure with the small cells, you're losing some coverage. What is the percentage? Are you actually covering more people and losing more? What is the benefits in that aspect of covering people within areas? Because I have experienced that you lose when you use putting small cells. And I would assume that's not the objective.
Right. The objective is distinct, definitely to fortify the network. So if that's not happening and where you are, that's something you would have to take to the AT&T, to your local AT&T store and report that to them. Because if they installed small cells and your coverage got worse, they should definitely know about that. But that's definitely not how it should work, unless a dramatic number of new subscribers were brought into the system. That would be the only other explanation that I can think of.
After hearing what you said, our neighborhoods are very heavily tree lined, and you mentioned trees can prevent coverage. So and it happened overnight. So it's not a question of whether or not it was a building of that would happen over time when you'd go from 4 to 3 from 5 bars to 4 bars to 3 bars to eventually having difficulty. That's not the case. So I'm wondering if, that is an issue, that small cells may be less intrusive, but once you come lower down that pole, you completely, especially in a town like Altadena with so much tree coverage, you might just be doing something that really is not advantageous.
Well, the small cells.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Adrian.
Excuse me. Small cells. They don't. It's an additive principle. It's not it's either or. So the macro sites continue to function as they always have, but the small cells simply add to the network. So it should not be. There's probably something else going on in that area. But I can't really comment on it because I'm not an RF engineer. So I'm a planner and I get permits. Okay. So basically my presentation is kind of that's as far. I'm not really qualified to comment on specific RH coverage things like that may be happening in your area over there. That's something that you'd have to bring up to your local store over there.
Yeah, I mean, we deal with it. This is Altadena. Its coverage is bad anyway. The only reason I'm asking is if there's no benefit of coverage by putting in small cells, simply because they, like you mentioned, there has to be a line of sight. Then really, I'm just wondering what's the point if we live in a heavy tree environment. I'm just wondering. Anyway, that was all.
Well, the challenge is to have, like, for example, if you look at our site, it's sort of perched on top of the hill there. So the idea is to sort of overshoot the trees and to try to avoid them as much as possible. But there is no such thing as a perfect, RF wireless network. The RF engineers would like to design such a network, but it just doesn't exist. They just have to deal with the realities and nooks and crannies of wherever they are able to obtain sites. So, and in this instance, this is it. There's really nowhere else for a site to go that's appropriate.
Okay, did anybody else have any other questions? Adrian, can you
I
take
have
your,
one. I have one. I was just wondering if this antenna is being built in response to specific customer requests in the area.
Typically, that can happen, which is why I recommended that Daniel go and report the scenario to their loss of coverage to the store, and they do look at customer complaints for stuff like that. They actually they number them. So if they get a certain number of complaints in an area, that definitely influences where they release search rings, is what they call them when they want us to find a new site location for them.
But you don't know if this one
No, they don't tell us that. It's all just we get a set of latitude and longitude coordinates with a ring drawn around it, showing us where we can look and what it's centered on. So typically the lat longs they give us is called a bullseye, and that's the center of the coverage objective. In this instance, on top of the hill is just the simple logical place to place a wireless site.
okay, anybody else have any questions? Adrian, maybe you can take your picture down. I can see everybody.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
So because your picture's up, I can't see everybody. And so,
I'm sorry. Okay.
No, that's okay. And so there everybody is. Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? I'm seeing you all now. Okay, so what our plan is for and Adrian, if you could go find out about if the wires are expected to be excavated, that'd be great. And we'll get back together again and do this presentation again in another month, the first Tuesday of April. And in the meantime, Dorothy and Hannah will work their magic with the neighbors and all of that. Adrian, if you can help them get good, clear, large enough to see handouts, that we could print and give to people, that would be helpful. And I'll let you and Dorothy and Hannah figure out which pictures those are. That would be good. And we'll go from there and see where we are next month. Does anybody have any questions about that? Dorothy, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So we were primarily looking at the one pole, right, Adrian? So the northeast.
Yeah, that's the only one I could get a photo of.
Yeah.
Visibility of. I could not get visibility of the other one.
Right. So the other one is more facing northeast towards Rising Hill.
Yes. Okay. And I just looked at the site exactly, and the site plan close up here, and it's an excavation, so it will be provided underground, not via wire. There is existing wire up there for the existing Southern California Edison power pole, but that's not our
we won't worry about that. Edison has issues up here.
Yeah. So it's definitely undergrounding anything that both poles that we're utilizing.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so I'm sorry, Donald, did you have your hand up? Okay, all right, sorry. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't skipping anybody. Okay, Adrian, thank you so much for your time and your your explanation of the project, and we'll use the next month to get any questions answered. Everybody has any questions that come up, ask Dorothy and Hannah. They'll be able to either answer it or get an answer for you. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I don't have any general public comment from anybody that I received I didn't get any requests for census tract reports if there were any of those. Okay, can I ask for a
motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? It was really good to see everybody. Take care. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good one.